Hello everyone, so welcome to part 2 of this crazy alien creature modeling sculpting tutorial, right? So just when you thought the world can't possibly get any crazier, here you are watching a video about sculpting an alien sci-fi sandal. So I think that's pretty funny. So let's get started. So the place where I stopped last time was at this stage right here where we sort of finished the rest of the head, and we spent some time on the hands, and the next step was to jump into finishing the feet, and then of course working on the spacesuit, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide everything, actually if I hold on the shift key I can just hide everything at once and just simply click on the feet. So I could do that. And that does kind of the same thing. So one of the things I need to do right away is I'm going to press F to make sure that I frame my sandals, and I have to do it twice. Once it is framed, there's a couple things that I would like to point out. So if I make the sandal and start sculpting and modeling it, even if it's high resolution, right, it's still going to be a lot easier to deal with if we build this with symmetry in mind, right? Right now these feet are sort of turned a little bit, and it's probably going to be a little bit hard to use active symmetry as we're continuing. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to this setting here called split. I'm going to say split to parts. So essentially that's going to divide, I'm going to say always okay. It's going to divide both of these into two separate layers, right? And if I turn these on, you can see they're still positioned in the same way, but now they're organized in a different way. They're in two different layers. And the reason I want to do that is because now if I hide one of them, right, I can use this one as a reference to the rotational position, but I can use this one to straighten back up the way it was initially and start building a sandal around it and sculpting the foot, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to move. Let's go ahead and change the pivot, right? So I'm going to unlock this, put this into position, lock this back up, and just rotate this to be straighter. So I think something like that should work. If I start building a sandal facing straight down, that should be pretty perfect, right? So let's think about this. Do we want to sculpt the foot first, or do we want to start adding the new shapes for the sandal? I think we might as well finish the foot, right? It's pretty simple. So let's spend a few minutes sculpting that. So I'm going to go back to draw. All right, let's go ahead and take a look and see where we left off. So as you remember in the previous video, we did subdivide this, right? So we added kind of a skin detail by using our standard brush. Let's do the same thing. I'm going to do Control D, and I'm going to subdivide this. I'll go ahead and give me enough resolution to hold that skin detail, right? Now I'm going to go to my standard brush, and just like before, actually this guy's on the way, I'm going to move him out of the way. I'm using PureRef for this, right? PureRef app to float my reference image, in case I didn't mention that. So I'm going to go back to, let's go to standard brush, stroke. Let's do spray, and in here I'm going to grab this alpha 60, and just like before, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to leave it either on add or sub. It doesn't really matter. I'll go ahead and switch it to sub and turn this Z intensity way down, and let's just start adding kind of a skin detail to this, right? Just very quickly go around and just like before, just kind of in circular motion, I'm just going around and adding kind of a skin pattern, right? This is perfect for like an alien or kind of a stylized skin result, right? Let's go ahead and do that. All right, I'm gonna do that on the entire foot, and you know what? I'll just do it in the bottom as well. Now, no one's going to see the bottom of the foot, right? Because this is going to be pressed against the sandal, but we can just have a little fun. Now, one of the basic things we know right away, right, from our limited anatomy understanding is that the foot has an arch, right? That's usually the sculpting choice, right? So let's go ahead and do the same thing. Let's just add a little arch towards the inner part of the foot, just to make it a little more realistic. And if you want to, you can spend a little more time, you know, sculpting this and making it look interesting and creature-like, right? I'm gonna raise this part up so it feels a little more natural. And at any point, if I wanted to add, let's say I want to have like a joint running down here, right? So I can use any one of these. I can use, let's just use inflate and add something like this, right? So it feels like there's some kind of joints running here. And normally you probably want to do this kind of stuff before you add the skin detail, but we should be okay because I have a lot of resolution here. So I can smooth this out. And at any point, of course, I can come back here and add this on top, right? So it's not that big of a deal, but I guess now since I'm thinking of it, I should have done this first. So let's add kind of a little joint action so we know he has some bones going on in there, maybe a little bit here. Let's maybe do something like this. And if we wanted to, we can even add a few wrinkles. And that's a good idea as well, right? So we can add maybe a couple skin wrinkles on the back of his heel. And again, just like in part 1, I really like this folding brush. And I have a link in part 1 to the brush. It's a free brush, so feel free to use that as well. So it's this one right here. And again, it's a free brush. Download it, use it if you want, or maybe you have a different one. But I love to use this for wrinkles. So I'm going to turn my intensity down, maybe make this a little larger. Let's just give him holding down the Alt key, right? And not, right? You can go between and create kind of a cool, almost like a wrinkle effect. And we could decide if we want to do something here as well, right? Maybe there's a little alien wrinkle on the side here too, like. Just make it a little more natural. Just break the shape up a little, right? So it's not so blobby and solid, right? Let's break this up and let's do the same thing here. Just add just a little something, something. And I can add a little foot knuckle here. And let's decide if we want to do anything in the bottom. I don't think so, right? Because again, no one's going to see this. So that's fine. I'm going to add a little something here. And I'm pretty happy with this foot. I think it's great. Next, let's go ahead and add some nails, right? Just like we did before in a previous tutorial. Let's just hold down Control key. And to do this, I'm going to go to Standard. And let's go ahead and go back to dots. I'm going to switch this to alpha 01. That's fine. Holding down the Control key, I can just mask out what I think the nail should look like. And we can, of course, further sculpt it as well. But normally you want to just do something like this, right? And, you know, if we wanted to, we could even extend the nail, make it feel more dangerous, like a, you know, like a pointy nail. But I want mine, I'm kind of going for like this toony, friendly creature. Like, he's not really a bad guy. I know he has these scary teeth, but like if you start doing kind of really long, you know, dinosaur nails, it's going to give him more of a villain feel, I feel. He's kind of just like a silly space alien. He doesn't really have bad intentions. So I'm going to leave it like this, so he's a little more friendly, right? What I'm going to do next is go to, I need to extract this, right? So I'm going to go to geometry, or I'm going to come down to extract. And this doesn't really matter, but I'm going to leave it on 0.02 and say extract and see what that gives me. So this is way too much height. Just like in first one, let's do 0.01 and do extract. And I think that's a little bit better. So I'm going to say accept. A new layer was created. You can see that. And if I hold on Control and drag, I can unmask it and take a look and see if I need to do any further sculpting, right? If I did, I can do that with using my move brush. I can move these around a little bit, just make sure I'm happy. I want to make sure I push in this part in, right? You want to have the, for the nail to look more realistic, you want to make sure that this part is kind of flat. And you can obviously look at your own nail as well, right? You have this part is a little flatter. So just mimic somewhat what is relatable, right? Shape-wise. And let's do something like that. So let's say I'm happy with this, that's fine. I'm gonna next zRemesh this. So I'm gonna go geometry, I'm gonna go zRemesher. Let's change this way down, like 1. I don't really care about adapt. I don't really care about this shape that much. Adapt will hold the shape better, right? I don't really care about that. So I'm just gonna say 1 and let's just do zRemesh and let's take a look at what we have here. Okay, and then make sure your active symmetry is not on, right? You don't want to mirror any of this. All right, very cool. It's going to give me something like that. If I turn on my polyframe, I can see it's super low, and we don't really care about topology at this point yet. We're just doing a high-res version of this guy first. So I'm going to press Control D and just a couple times, smooth this a couple times. So I'm at 12,000 points, but the nails look nice and beautiful. And I think that works, right? If at any point, if you ever have something super blobby, and sometimes, you know, like the nail, you want to make it feel a little more, I don't know what the word is, rigid, a little more formy, like a little more sharp. You can always go to clay polish. And what you could do is, even if you leave this by default, you can dial this up. Let's do a little more edges and just do clay polish. And you can see right away what's happening, right? It's adding a little more definition or sharpness to your object. I can smooth this out if I wanted to. And maybe that's a good idea, right? And we can also polish this. Maybe smooth this out a little more. Let's polish it even more. And as I'm polishing it, you can see what it's doing. It's going back and kind of deleting this thing, but then I can come here and let's do clay polish again. So a really interesting way to dial stuff as you like, right? So keep that in mind. It's a very useful little trick as you're modeling something that is not super organic. All right, so let's say I'm happy with this foot, right? So now obviously I need to start on the sandal. What would be a good way to start on the sandal? Now we don't have a very detailed reference for this, so we can be super creative. And if you guys want, you know, I strongly suggest going and looking up at some references if you want to make your own custom sandal. You know, you can go to Pinterest, you can go to Instagram, wherever your sources of inspiration is, and just look up, you know, like a futuristic shoe or a sci-fi boot, or, you know, even like a snow boot is a good reference as well. But I'm just gonna, again, keep it semi-simple because you can spend hours on each one of these elements, and that is not the point of these little training videos, right? So what I'm gonna do is, let's first bring in a shape that we can use as the base for the sandal. So to do that, I'm gonna go to Subtool. I'm going to, let's decide if we want to merge our nails with the foot. I think it might be a little easier to manage this. And you know what? I am going to merge it. So if I hide my nail, I can see that this is still masked. Sometimes this will cause strange issues. So make sure your shapes are not masked if you're done with it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and just merge it down and say always okay. And it should be okay, because normally the thing that will completely mess you up again, and now I'm thinking back on this, I think I actually made a mistake in the first video, where if this is in dynamesh mode and you drag, you know, and you control drag, these will fuse together and then you lose your shapes. And then you can no longer separate them. Normally, you know, if you do merge things together, like this nail and the foot, for example, right? I want to make sure I'm not in dynamesh, and this will allow me to always split them if I needed to, right? And of course they're also if I do auto groups, you can see they're separate shapes, so they're separate polygroups. I believe I did not do that with the hand, but that's what normally you want to do. And actually, now I just remembered, we also added a little texture up here, so on the nail. So let's go ahead and do that same kind of effect maybe on this nail too. Just a little something something. Otherwise you can see it's just super boring, right? We can flatten, soften this a little bit or smooth it. Just adds a little something more interesting. Now because I'm on sub, you see it kind of pressed it in. I actually don't like that. I'm gonna undo this and I want to pull it up. So I'm gonna say add. Let's see if I can make a little more of a kind of a bubble effect versus like pressing it in. Yeah, so you see that's coming out. I think that's a little bit better. Right, so always, with every little step, there's all these choices, and you have to like decide what makes sense. Now I'm looking at this, actually, if this was pressed against the foot, it would have some kind of a gravity thing going, so you, like the muscles are pressed in a little more, so it wouldn't be so bubbly. It would be more like that, right? Same thing with the heel. Let's do that. And on the bottom of the foot, maybe the texture, again, no one's going to see this, but maybe it's a little different pattern, right? We could do that for the heel too. All right. Anyway, so let's stop here, and you can see it's very easy to like get lost in every single one of these pieces and just start micro detailing it for hours, and then you'll have insane, amazing result. But it also creates super long videos. All right, so what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna say insert, and I'm gonna say, let's see, what should be, let's go with the cylinder. I'm gonna say cylinder. All right. Now when I brought the cylinder in, I can't find it because it's on top. So I'm gonna grab my move, pull it down, and let's start shaping this into a sole of the sandals. So maybe let's just squish this in and let's put it into better position. I'm going to jump out of perspective view and start kind of aligning it, right? So just do it one view at a time. So maybe from this view I have something like this. From the top view, let's get into position as well. Okay. And right now what I want to do is I want to shape this a little more, and I want to shape this while keeping it still in super low resolution. And to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to I'm going to press M, and I'm going to grab something right here called Move Infinite Depth. So if I click on that, you will see that I can start moving this around. But as I'm moving these points on top, right, I'm in the top view, it's also going to move the ones on the bottom. And the reason for that is because the infinity kind of shoots the, kind of a ray down. I don't really know how it works, but it grabs all the points underneath as well, right? So if I move this around, I know it's going to do it in a proper way where all the points are grabbed on here, up here, and down here, right? Very cool. Anyway, so let's use this brush, and we can make it kind of large and start kind of going around the sandal, or the foot, I mean, and create a custom fit sandal. I think he's probably size 11. I don't know. Might be larger. Let's go around and do something like that. I think that's cool. If we needed more, once we get to the point where we need more resolution, we could subdivide it, but you want to make sure that you don't lose some of those edges, right? Also, let's decide on the thickness. Now, I kind of like this being kind of high, but maybe it's a little too high, so I can always squish this down. And let's decide how much of the foot we're actually affecting. So maybe something like that is good. And of course I have to adjust that, right? So how do I do that? I'm going to click on Move. I'm going to select this foot, and let's just move this down and do something like that, right? So we have this really nice flow of shapes. So we have this arch, that is probably a little too high, so we can lower this a little bit. And then we have this nice space here with our foot, so it's kind of squishy, you know, it's touching the sandal, and just make it feel like there's some weight on this guy, right? So for that, you want to go in and just do something like this, right? You want to move into the sandal, distribute some of this weight, especially in the back. All right, very cool. So that feels a little bit better, right? It feels like it's being pressed in. Very nice. So next, let's decide what we want to do here. So one of the things I could do is I could subdivide it. So I could press, let's go back to our sandal. Let's do Control D a few times. And I'm gonna go kind of high. Let's go to like 500. And I'm actually liking this. I think this feels pretty good. And let's just decide what do we want to do with the sandal. So if I do anything, right, I think I'm going to jump into dynamesh mode so I can turn it into more of a clay and just start messing around with the knife tool. So let's do that. Let's just maybe go to something like, let's try 256 and do dynamesh. But because this is subdivided, it's going to ask us to either freeze or delete lower. Right, so I'm going to delete lower, that's fine. And I'm going to go into dynamesh. And that went to 103. And that's fine, because I can always zRemesh it and get that clean geo back, right? I just kind of want to hold the main shape. And now let's just start messing around with the sandal. So if I press Control Shift, I can go into my quick pick. And here, let's just grab something like, let's just use, we can use the knife rectangular tool at first, and maybe let's do something like this. You know, it's a sandal, right? So it's a space sandal, so it needs to be interesting. So let's do that. Control Shift. I'm gonna go into my, let's go into the knife curve, and let's do Control Shift. If I do Control Shift and let it go, I have something like this, and then the gradient is the part that's going to be cut. So if I hold the space bar, I can move this thing around. And actually, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm gonna go like here. I'm gonna tap my Alt key to create a sharp turn. Go somewhere here, then tap my Alt key again, and let's just figure out what we want our shape to be. Maybe something like that. I'm just gonna cut. And that is, I think, is pretty cool. Now, what happens if we want to add some kind of interesting, let's say we want to punch a hole through here, right? For whatever reason, the sandal has some holes inside, right? How do we do that? Well, the easiest way to do that would definitely just be using a bevel. So we can always insert something like, let's insert a box or a cylinder. If you have to decide if you want your holes to be round or square, right? So let's say I want it to be round. So I'm going to say cylinder. And again, I know it's going to put it all the way on top. Grab my move and find my cylinder. Come back here. Holding down the Shift key, I can rotate this 90 degrees. And let's go ahead and scale this down. Go back to the back, and let's scale this down and figure out the size of the hole we want. Maybe something like that is good. And move it into position. All right. And let's say I want my hole to be, maybe I want like, I don't know, I want 2 holes here. So I'm going to do something like this. And to punch the hole through, what I could do is I can go into transparent mode. I can make this longer. Then I can put it through both of them, right? So now I know it's on both sides. Perfect. I can now click on this little button here, and that's going to subtract, right? So this is going to subtract this shape from this shape, but I want to make sure that it doesn't go above affecting any other shapes. So how do I make sure that this is kind of blocked off? Well, that's what this button is. If I click on this, it's going to say start here and don't go past this. Now if I click on this, it's gonna subtract it from the sandal, but I don't have the live boolean preview on, right? So to turn that on, you need to come to render booleans, live booleans. So I have it dragged on my UI. So if I click on it, you can see a hole is punched through. And the cool thing about booleans is that they're dynamic, so you can move this around and see how it's looking. It's kind of a great way to create very interesting shapes very quickly. So I'm gonna hold on the control key and make another hole and just do something like that. And to me, this feels very sci-fi. If I wanted to add one here, hold on control key, just come over here. And obviously I can't see it because the cylinder is not long enough. So let's go ahead and make it longer. If we ever wanted to see what do the shapes really look like, you can always turn on your polyframe and you can see kind of a ghosted reference of what it looks like. It's kind of interesting. But if you're done, just turn that off. All right, so now we have something along these lines for our sci-fi sandal bottom. All right, I kind of like it, but it feels like on the reference I added some, you know, cushiony spikes on the bottom, right? What if I wanted to add some of those? What I could do is I'm gonna go into my sole, and I think I'm gonna do something as simple as holding down the control key. I can just mask this out. Just do something like that. And I'm gonna do the same thing here. I don't really need these to be same size or anything, because this is, you know, it's a galactic fashion. It's hard to explain, but you have something along these lines. Now, if I do control and click, it's gonna reverse this, which is pretty cool. And also means I can push this down. And when I push it down, I have something like that. Now, at first it looks super messy and weird, but it's okay because again, we can zRemesh this and clean this, right? So we just have to decide if we like it. If we like it, I'm gonna do control and drag to kind of commit to it. I'm gonna come in the front view and I'm gonna go to draw, control shift, go into my knife rectangular, and let me just actually take out all of these here and do something like that. I think that's very interesting and unusual. All right, I think I like this. Now let's decide if we want to commit to these holes. How do we bake this together? Right now we have like this Boolean dynamic setup going on. How do we actually, you know, turn this into one dynamesh shape so we can zRemesh it? To do that, what I could do is I'm gonna hide the foot, and these two are the only ones visible, right? So now if I go to Boolean, I can say make Boolean mesh, and it's gonna look at anything that is it's gonna look at the things that are visible, and it's gonna fuse them together and create another tool. So if I say make Boolean mesh and come up here, you can see that a mesh was created, right? So now if I click on it, I have this mesh by itself, press F, and now it's no longer using live booleans. It's actually literally, you know, turned into one shape. Now, before I send this over to my other tool, what I could do here is I should zRemesh this. So next, let's add a little more active points to this. So I'm gonna do Control D a couple times, and give myself maybe 1,000,000 points or so. And once you do that, let's go ahead and go to zRemesher under geometry. Go to zRemesher. In here, let's change this to maybe, let's do something kind of high first. We'll do 10. We'll leave adapt on. Let's leave detect edges on. And let's make sure our active symmetry is not on, right? And we're gonna zRemesh it. It's gonna tell us that this has subdivision levels, so we need to delete this. And let's do zRemesh. All right, so this is gonna give us a little bit better, cleaner geometry, and I think that works. We can do Control D, and let's just subdivide it a couple times. So if something like this, this will work, right? So now let's go ahead and bring this into the other tool. So to do this, I'm actually going to delete lower. I'm fine with this shape as this. And let's go into tools. Actually, let's click on our other one, right? So now we still have this. I no longer need this, right? So what I could do is I could just simply delete this one. And I also don't need these tubes, so I'm going to delete those. And I want to bring my sandal in. So I'm going to append the new boolean mesh that was created, and you can see what that looks like. And I have a wrong foot activated here, so let's make sure we have the right right foot. Now we have something like this, right? So now we have zRemeshed sandal with the foot, and we can of course add more and more and more detail. But let's say we just want to move along and maybe spend more time later. And for now, let's just add like a little strap like we have in the reference, right? How do we do that? Well, let's just simply insert a box, and it's going to put it up here. I'm going to grab my move. Let's move this down, and let's just kind of start shaping this into what a strap would look like, right? So like a sandal strap for a space sandal. Right, so like this. I'm gonna not rotate this yet, so I want to make sure that it's kind of easy to deal with. We can always rotate this into position in a second, and you can see there's, in my reference, I have two of them, so let's just make one first. Alright, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go to make this a little bit longer, put it into position, and let's go to this view. We can always turn on the transparency and just play around with the thickness. We can play around with this here, make sure it kind of makes sense if it bends. All right, and now I want to bend it. So to bend this, I'm going to go into this gear. I'm going to say bend curve, and I'm going to give myself more resolution, and essentially just 3 points should be enough, right? Let's just start bending this. I'm going to put this one here. I'll bring this one up, and put this one here. I'm going to go inside the sandal and do something like that. Let's turn off transparency and start to see what's going on here. It's definitely breaking, right? The topology is terrible. We should have actually probably changed the topology on this, but we should be okay. Let's do Control D to subdivide it, and we'll deal with it in a second. I'm going to go to draw, grab my move, make it huge, and let's just start kind of positioning this into where we want the straps to be. So something like that. And I know it's curving a little bit, and I'm totally fine with that. Make this kind of large, move this into position. I think it adds even more playfulness. And I can make sure that it goes inside the sandal. All right, and maybe I want to make sure that it's not going inside the mesh, but at the same time I want to make sure it kind of hugs the surface from each kind of angle here, right? So I can move this down, and let's make it kind of wide. And the reason we want to do wide is because now we can make a cut in the middle to make two of them, right? So let's do that. So I'm going to do something like this. And before I mess it up any more, I'm going to subdivide it more. So I'm going to do, actually, let's see, let's subdivide it, Control D, a lot. Like I'm going to go to 2 million. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my geometry. I'm going to delete my levels. I'm going to go to dynamesh, and let's just do something not as crazy. Let's do 256, and let's just dynamesh this. And now I have 19,000 points, which is very manageable. If I hold on Control and Shift, I can go to my quick pick. Let's grab something like the, I'm going to take this knife curve. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is I want to make a cut in the middle, but I want to make sure that I like if I cut this, I don't want to lose the entire side. I just want to like cut inside there. So I'm going to do Control Shift and drag up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap Alt twice, go here, tap Alt twice, come down. And now if I make a cut, you can see it's going to cut inside. And it's going to give me something terrible. So I don't want that. So undo. Let's do transparency. Oh, and you can see it's actually not aligned well. So let me move this into a better alignment. I'm going to deal with these pieces in a second. But now I know that if I use my cut tool, this will make a lot more sense. So let's try this again. Control Shift, go up, kind of match the angle. Very cool. Alt twice, move over, Alt twice, move down, and let's just hold on the space bar. We can move this into maybe a good position and just cut. All right, so that I think that works. Let's jump out of the transparency mode, grab our move, and see if we need to touch up anything like here and here, and of course here. All right, there's some issues there, and just make it somewhat feel like it's touching the foot, right? Very cool. So now we have this shape, and if we wanted to clean this up really quick, we can always zRemesh that as well. Let's jump out of, we don't need dynamesh. Let's just, I'm gonna leave this on 5, that's fine. Adapt, that's fine. Let's just do zRemesh. See if we can make this a little bit cleaner. It's a little bit nicer. Okay. We can make it even straighter by dialing it down. If I jump out of adapt, do half and do zRemesh, you can see how this is gonna start getting kind of cleaner and cleaner. Let's just keep going. Oh, one more. And now it's really, I want to do more. Now it's really super clean. Very nice. So now if I jump out of the polyframe, I can do Control D a few times. And now I have this beautiful clean sandal strap, right? Very nice. And from here we can do more detailing, we can sculpt, we can do whatever, but I think this looks pretty great, and you're welcome to spend a little more time on your character and adding a little more details. But I think I'm going to go ahead and clone this to the other side, and let's just see where we're at. So this other foot, remember, is still rotated in or out, right? This foot is rotated out, and this one we rotated in. So how would we clone this foot to the other side with the rotation? And we have multiple meshes. That sounds pretty complicated, but it's really not, because all we need to do is just simply grab the foot, and let's hide the other foot. And we want to put all of these shapes into one. So I know there is a way to do it with not doing this, because you can move and rotate layers, right, by using this thing here. But I think just for the sake of simplicity and kind of, if anyone is new, it would make more sense if we just combine it, because you can always separate it. So it's really not that big of a commitment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sole of the shoe, the sandal, and I'll move it up. And the reason I'm moving it up is because now all three of these together. So I'm going to take my foot and I'm going to merge it down. And I'm going to merge it down again with the sole of the foot. So now I have all three of them in one layer. And again, dynamesh is not on, so I'm not going to like infuse them together. They're still separate. If I go to my polyframe and do auto groups, you can see each one of these is different colors. So they're not, you know what I mean? They're not one mesh, which is great, which means we can always separate them once again. Very nice. So now if I unhide my other foot, I can see what this is doing, and it's angled. So what I need to do is I need to take this, move it, and let's go ahead and center it. And let's just move it into the same position as this, right? So I'm going to move it into position, and then I can also rotate it. And I can move it around, make sure it's somewhat aligned, right? So I have something like this. Now if I hide the old one, I only have the new one. And now if I hold on the shift and click on the eyes, everything comes back, and again I don't want the other foot. So now what I need to do is I simply need to mirror this over to this side, right? And let's take a look at this beautiful artwork. So what we need to do, ignore the spaces. The spaces looks terrible, but we did spend time on all the other elements, and they're starting to look pretty cool. So what we are going to do next is just simply mirror this to this side, and then we can do mirror and weld, or of course we can duplicate this and do a mirror, and we could do it that way. And now again, if we want to split this, just go to split and do split to parts, and you can see everything is now separate, so we can work on it more and mirror it, flip it, and all that stuff. All right. So I think as far as the sci-fi sandal part 2 of this tutorial goes, I'm going to end here. I'm going to go into perspective view. Let's take a look, and let's do a BPR. All right, so there you go. I think this is pretty great stopping point. So again, I strongly urge you to go through and just add more fun details, and I will meet you in part 3 for some spacesuit action. And in our spacesuit, we're gonna do some knee pads. We'll add a big, juicy zipper, and just some fun, simple details to kind of tie all this together, right? All right, so thanks again for joining me on part 2, and I will see you in our next video.